The scream didn't come from the mall. That was the first thing that felt wrong. It rose from the parking lot. Long, thin, and wet, like something being torn apart slowly. Not loud enough to send people running. Not sharp enough to stop the Christmas music drifting from the open doors. Just enough to slide under the noise and stay there. Evan Matthews froze beside his car, one hand on the door handle, breath fogging the cold air. The parking lot was packed. Rows of vehicles idled under glowing streetlights. Families laughed. Shopping carts rattled. Somewhere nearby, a child cried. But this scream was different. Older. Fuller. Wrong. It came again. Closer this time. Evan turned slowly, scanning the rows. Nothing moved except exhaust smoke and falling snow. The sound had no source. No direction. It felt like it came from everywhere at once, vibrating through the asphalt. A woman loading gifts into her trunk paused, frowning. "Did you hear that?" Evan asked. She shook her head. "Hear what?" The scream cut off mid-breath. Silence pressed down hard enough to hurt his ears. Evan's phone buzzed. A missed call. No number. Just static where the contact name should have been. Then a whisper drifted from somewhere behind his car. Soft, breathy, and smiling. "Don't leave yet." Evan turned. The parking space behind him was empty. But his car door was open. And something inside was breathing. Evan Matthews sat in his car long after the engine had gone quiet. The mall loomed ahead of him like a living thing. Glass doors breathing warm light into the cold night, wreaths hanging like forced smiles. Christmas music drifted faintly through the air, cheerful and distorted by distance. The parking lot stretched endlessly in every direction, rows of cars packed close together, their windshields reflecting the overhead lamps like unblinking eyes. He should have driven away. That thought came late, like an afterimage burned into his mind. Too late to be useful. Too late to matter. Snow fell softly, thick flakes settling on the asphalt, muting sound. The scream replayed in his head, not loud, not dramatic, but wrong in a way he couldn't explain. It hadn't sounded like pain exactly. It sounded like recognition. Evan swallowed and glanced at the back seat again. Empty. Still, he didn't move. Silence filled the car, heavy and intentional. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that waits. His breath fogged the windshield, then faded. The air smelled stale now, metallic beneath the fake pine scent. He reached for the door handle. The moment his fingers touched the cold metal, a soft tap echoed from somewhere behind him. Evan froze. Another tap. Slow. Patient. Not on the window. From inside the trunk. His heartbeat thudded in his ears, drowning out everything else. He sat perfectly still, afraid that even breathing might encourage whatever was back there. Logic clawed its way to the surface. Ice shifting, something falling, imagination feeding on adrenaline. But imagination didn't tap back. The sound came again, clearer this time. 3 deliberate knocks. Evan whispered to himself. No. The word felt small. Ineffective. Outside, a family passed by laughing, their shopping bags swinging. A child waved at him through the glass. Evan forced a smile, his face stiff and unnatural. The tapping stopped. Relief washed over him too fast, too strong. His muscles loosened, his grip relaxing just enough for the moment to slip. That's when the whisper came. Not from the trunk. Not from the radio. From the empty passenger seat beside him. "You took too long." Evan screamed and slammed the car into reverse, tires shrieking against the pavement. He didn't look to his right. He didn't look anywhere. He drove blindly through the lot, heart hammering, pulse roaring louder than the engine. He didn't stop until he reached the far exit. Only then did he dare to breathe. The ride home blurred. Streets passed without meaning. Houses glowed warmly, decorated with lights and inflatable Santas, their cheer feeling staged, artificial. Evan's hands shook the entire way. When he finally reached his apartment, he sat in the parking lot for nearly 10 minutes before stepping out. Nothing followed him inside. That night, Evan dreamed of parking spaces. Not cars, spaces. Empty rectangles stretching forever, each one humming softly, like something waiting to be filled. He stood in the middle of them, holding his keys, unsure where to go. Every space whispered his name. He woke before dawn, drenched in sweat. For the rest of the day, the world felt slightly misaligned. Sounds arrived a second too late. Reflections lingered after he moved away. His phone buzzed with notifications that vanished before he could read them. By evening, Evan convinced himself it had been stress. Christmas stress. Crowds. Fatigue. He decided to go back. Just once. The mall parking lot looked harmless in daylight. Snow had been plowed into gray piles. The air smelled of exhaust and wet concrete. People moved normally, hurried but alive. Evan walked the rows slowly, forcing himself not to rush. Then he found the space. Same row. Same light pole. The asphalt there was darker, as if it never fully dried. Faint drag marks scarred the ground, leading toward the space and stopping abruptly, like something had been pulled in. A man stood nearby, older, wearing a janitor's jacket, keys hanging from his belt. He watched Evan too closely. "You shouldn't stand there," the man said. Evan turned. "Why?" The man's eyes flicked toward the empty space. "Because that spot listens." Evan laughed nervously. "Listens to what?" The man leaned closer, voice barely audible. "To people who hesitate." The overhead light flickered once, then went out. Evan felt it immediately. That same pressure, that same waiting silence settling around him. Behind him, a car door opened. Slowly. Too slowly. Evan didn't turn around. He already knew something had decided he wasn't leaving this time. Evan did not turn around. He stood frozen beside the listening space, the dead streetlight humming faintly above him. Snow creaked under his shoes as something, shifted behind him. The sound was careful, controlled, like it didn't want to scare him away too quickly. A car door finished opening. No footsteps followed. Evan closed his eyes. If I don't see it, it isn't real. That lie had worked his entire life. A breath brushed the back of his neck. Warm. Human. He spun around. Nothing. The parking space behind him was empty. No car. No person. Just blackened asphalt and faint drag marks disappearing beneath fresh snow. The janitor was gone. Evan staggered back, heart racing, scanning the lot. People moved in the distance, pushing carts, loading trunks, living normal lives inches away from something that felt vast and patient. He left without looking back. That night, Evan didn't sleep. He sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open, lights on, curtains drawn tight. Every few minutes, he glanced at the door, the hallway, the window. The silence inside his apartment pressed against him like deep water. He searched the mall's name. Nothing. Then parking lot disappearance. Pages filled the screen. Local reports. Forums. Comment sections half erased by moderators. He noticed how often the same phrases appeared, even when written by different people. I thought I heard someone. I didn't want to leave. The car wouldn't start. I stayed. Most posts ended abruptly. Some were followed months later by replies from strangers. Did you make it out? Please answer. Hello. No responses. Evan leaned back, rubbing his eyes. At 2:17 a.m., his screen flickered. A new result appeared at the top of the page. No date, no source. The lot listener. He clicked. The page was bare. White background. Black text. No images. It does not chase. It does not drag. It does not force. It waits. Evan swallowed. The text continued. It listens for the moment you stop. For hesitation. For loneliness. For Christmas. His laptop shut itself off. The apartment fell into darkness. Evan sat motionless, breathing shallowly, waiting for the sound that never came. The following days blurred together. Evan went to work, answered emails, nodded through conversations. But everything felt hollow, like he was watching his life through thick glass. The signs grew subtle at first. His car unlocked itself at night. Christmas music played faintly when no radio was on. Once, while brushing his teeth, Evan noticed frost creeping along the edges of the bathroom mirror. Delicate, branching patterns forming letters before melting away. Stay. He stopped using his car. He took the bus. Walked. Avoided parking lots entirely. Still, the dreams followed him. Always the same. Snow falling endlessly. Rows of cars stretching farther than sight. The hum of overhead lights like distant chanting. Evan standing between spaces, keys heavy in his hand, unsure which belonged to him. And always, always, the feeling that he was being timed. On December 22nd, Evan met his neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, in the hallway. She was old, bent, her eyes sharp despite the years. She paused when she saw him, studying his face. "You look tired," she said. "I'm fine." She shook her head. "No. You're listening." Evan felt cold spread through his chest. Listening to what? Mrs. Callahan glanced toward the stairwell, then leaned closer. "Did you hear it yet?" "Hear what?" She smiled sadly. "Then it's already started." Before Evan could respond, she shuffled away, humming a Christmas carol, one he didn't recognize. That night, Evan heard footsteps outside his apartment door. They didn't move past. They waited. On December 23rd, Evan returned to the mall. He told himself he needed proof. Something concrete. Something he could point to and say this is real or this is nothing. The parking lot was nearly empty now, snow piling high along the edges. Christmas Eve loomed, and the air felt tight, expectant. The listening space was still there, unoccupied. The asphalt beneath it looked darker than the rest, like it absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Evan stood at the edge, heart pounding, every instinct screaming at him to leave. A voice spoke behind him. "You came back." Evan spun around. A man stood a few feet away, middle-aged, hollow-eyed, wearing a security jacket. His name badge was scratched blank. "I work nights," the man continued. "Most people don't see me." Evan forced himself to speak. "People disappear here." The man nodded. "They don't disappear. They stop." "Stop what?" The man looked toward the space. "Leaving." Evan swallowed. "What is it?" The man hesitated, then spoke quietly. "It's not a thing. It's a place where time slows down just enough for you to notice everything you've been avoiding." Evan felt a pressure behind his eyes. "That doesn't make sense." The man met his gaze. "Neither does staying." The overhead light flickered. The man was gone. Evan stood alone, breath fogging the air, the silence pressing closer. Something shifted in the space. Not movement. Attention. That night, Evan's phone rang. No number. He answered. Static. Breathing. Then a woman's voice. Shaking, terrified. "I just need help," she whispered. Evan gripped the phone. "Where are you?" "In my car," she said. "I heard you." "I'm not there." A pause. "You are," she said softly. The call ended. Evan screamed and threw the phone across the room. Moments later, it buzzed again. A voicemail. He didn't want to listen. He did anyway. The recording was short. His own voice. "I stayed." Christmas Eve arrived under heavy snow. Evan sat in his dark apartment, coat on, keys clenched in his hand. He didn't know why he was dressed. He didn't remember deciding to leave. His feet carried him outside. The parking lot of his apartment complex was empty, lights buzzing softly. His car sat at the far end, engine already running. The trunk was open. Inside were wrapped gifts. Each tag bore his name. One box shifted slightly. Evan stepped closer, heart hammering. From inside the box came a faint knock. 3 times. Careful. Patient. Behind him, the parking lot lights flickered off, one by one. The world narrowed to the sound of breathing and the quiet hum of waiting asphalt. Evan realized the truth then. It had never followed him. It had been letting him come to it. The trunk light flickered. And something inside whispered his name. The trunk light flickered. Once. Twice. then steadied, a weak yellow glow barely strong enough to reveal the box inside. The wrapping paper trembled as if caught in a draft that didn't exist. Evan stood frozen at the edge of the open trunk, keys digging into his palm, breath coming shallow and fast. The knock came again. 3 taps. Measured. Expectant. Evan whispered, "This isn't real." The words didn't echo. They sank into the cold, swallowed whole. The parking lot around him no longer felt like part of the world. The edges of it blurred, stretched unnaturally, the rows of empty spaces curving inward as if the ground itself were bowing. Snow hung motionless in the air, each flake suspended like it had forgotten how to fall. Evan took a step back. The trunk slammed shut. The car doors locked. The engine roared to life. No, 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 no. The headlights snapped on, washing the empty lot in harsh white light. Evan stumbled, barely avoiding the bumper as the car rolled forward on its own, tires crunching over ice. He scrambled backward, slipping, falling hard onto the asphalt. The driver's door opened. Slowly. The interior was dark. Too dark. Deeper than it should have been, like the light couldn't reach the back of the cabin. A voice drifted out. Not loud. Not angry. Relieved. "You came." Evan screamed and tried to run. The parking lot folded. Distance vanished. The far rows rushed toward him, slamming together like closing jaws. He crashed into a car that hadn't been there a moment before, metal icy against his cheek. When he looked up, there were cars everywhere, packed tight, door to door, windshield to windshield. No exits. Overhead, the lights buzzed louder now, their hum overlapping into something almost musical. Christmas music bled through the sound, warped and slowed, notes stretching until they sounded like groans. Evan pushed between 2 cars, gasping, panic shredding his thoughts. Hands slammed against windows from the inside. Faces pressed to the glass. Men, women, children, all pale, all wide-eyed, all smiling just a little too much. Their mouths moved in unison. "You stayed." Evan staggered back, clutching his head. "This isn't happening," he sobbed. "This isn't happening." A hand reached through the glass and grabbed his wrist. Cold. Too cold. He screamed and tore free, skin burning where it had touched him. The hand vanished back into the window like it had never been solid at all. The scream returned, the one from the first night. Only now he understood it. It wasn't pain. It was surrender. The ground tilted. Evan fell forward and didn't hit asphalt. He fell into memory. He was 8 years old again, sitting in the back seat of his mother's car, watching snow fall through the window. The parking lot was small, quiet. A grocery store. Late evening. His mother sat in the driver's seat, hands resting on the wheel. "We can wait a minute," she said softly. They waited. Minutes stretched. The engine went quiet. Outside, the lights buzzed. Evan remembered feeling cold. He remembered asking when they were going home. His mother didn't answer. The memory warped, twisted. Her reflection in the rearview mirror smiling too wide, eyes hollow, listening to something Evan couldn't hear. The scene shattered. Evan hit the ground hard, gasping, back in the endless lot. "That's not mine," he cried. "That's not mine." A figure stepped out from between the cars. Tall. Indistinct. Not a body so much as an absence shaped like one. The air around it bent, lights dimming as it moved. It didn't walk. It drifted, sliding closer without effort. When it spoke, it didn't use sound. The words arrived directly inside Evan's head. "Everyone stays somewhere." Evan shook violently. "I didn't choose this." The shape tilted as if considering him. "You did." Images slammed into Evan's mind. Moments of hesitation layered over one another. Sitting in his car after work, not wanting to go home. Lingering in parking lots, scrolling through his phone, avoiding silence inside empty rooms. Waiting. Always waiting. You listened, the presence pressed. That was enough. Evan clawed at the ground, nails scraping uselessly. "Let me go." The faces in the cars began to scream. Not in terror. In warning. The lights overhead shattered one by one, plunging sections of the lot into darkness. Shadows stretched, merging, filling the spaces between cars with something thick and breathing. The presence loomed closer. "Christmas is when they listen best," it whispered. "When the noise stops. When the loneliness gets loud." Evan felt his thoughts unravel. Time slipped sideways, seconds overlapping, moments repeating. He saw himself arriving at the mall again, hearing the scream again, opening his car door again, over and over, always choosing not to leave. "I'll do anything," Evan sobbed. The presence leaned close enough that the air froze in his lungs. "Stay." The word pressed into him like a command written into his bones. The car doors around him opened all at once. Every trunk popped. Inside each one lay wrapped boxes. Inside each box was a person, breathing, waiting. Evan screamed until his throat tore. The presence reached out, not with a hand, but with the weight of inevitability. The lot closed in, crushing, compressing, reality thinning to a single moment stretched too far. Evan felt himself slipping, becoming. The scream rose again. This time it belonged to him. Somewhere far away, a car horn honked. A shout. A voice. "Hey, are you okay?" The lot shuddered. The presence recoiled slightly, like a shadow disturbed by sudden light. Evan gasped, lungs burning. A figure ran toward him, a man in a winter jacket, breath steaming, fear plain on his face. "Sir, you can't just lie there." The man stopped. His eyes drifted past Evan, toward the spaces, the hum, the listening silence. "I heard someone," the man said softly. Evan grabbed his sleeve with the last of his strength. "Don't," he croaked. "Don't stay." The man frowned, hesitated. That moment, that tiny pause, rippled through the lot. The presence surged forward, eager. The man's expression softened, curiosity overtaking fear. "I just want to help," he said. Evan felt something tear inside him. The presence wrapped around him, pulling him backward, into the waiting space, into the dark between moments. As Evan vanished, the man took a step forward. The parking lot lights steadied. Snow began to fall again. Normal. Silent. The scream faded into memory. And somewhere beneath the asphalt, something listened. The man stood alone in the parking lot, snow settling on his shoulders. He blinked, confused, breath fogging the air. For a moment, he wasn't sure why he'd stopped. His heart was racing, palms damp, a dull ache sitting behind his eyes, the kind that followed a bad dream you couldn't quite remember. The lot looked normal. Too normal. Rows of cars sat quietly under steady lights. Snow fell gently now, soft and harmless. The hum overhead had faded back into the background noise of winter nights. Somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed. Someone laughed. The man looked down at the ground. There were marks in the snow, scuffed footprints, drag lines that stopped abruptly, like something had been pulled away. He frowned, trying to piece together what they meant. "Hello," he called. His voice echoed thinly and died quickly. No answer. After a moment, embarrassed by his own nerves, the man shook his head and returned to his car. As he drove away, he glanced once in the rearview mirror. For just a second, he thought he saw someone standing in the far row, watching. Then the angle changed, and the space was empty again. On December 26th, the mall reopened under gray skies. Shoppers returned with gift cards and returns, tired and distracted. The parking lot filled and emptied in its usual rhythm. Nothing seemed out of place, except for one car. It sat at the far edge of the lot, under a light that never quite stopped flickering. A thin layer of frost coated its windows from the inside, opaque and milky, like breath frozen mid-exhale. Security marked it for towing. The tow truck arrived late that evening. The driver, a broad man with tired eyes, circled the car once, frowning at the scratches along the doors. They weren't random. They ran outward. Deep grooves carved by fingernails or something harder, something desperate. He tugged on the driver's door. Locked. "All right," he muttered. "Your problem, not mine." As he hooked the car, a sound drifted through the cold air. Faint. Soft. A knock. 3 taps. The driver froze. The sound came again. From the trunk. He held his breath, listening, every instinct screaming at him to walk away. But instinct wasn't the same as reason, and reason had a way of filling silence with excuses. Probably an animal, he told himself. Probably metal contracting in the cold. He finished the job quickly, hands shaking, and drove off without looking back. As the car disappeared down the road, the flickering light steadied. The parking space beneath it sat empty, waiting. Evan Matthews was reported missing 2 days later. The police questioned coworkers, neighbors, family members he hadn't spoken to in years. They found his apartment intact. Coat gone, keys missing, phone cracked on the floor like it had been thrown in anger or fear. No signs of a struggle. No note. Just silence. Mrs. Callahan watched from her doorway as officers came and went. She said nothing. When they asked if she'd noticed anything strange, she smiled politely and shook her head. After they left, she closed her door and locked it. That night, she sat in her dark living room, listening. The hum was back. Faint. Far away. Satisfied. Weeks passed. Then months. Snow melted. Christmas decorations vanished. The mall rotated through seasons. Valentine's sales, spring discounts, summer crowds. Life continued in the way it always did, unbothered by absence. But people still hesitated. A teenager sitting in his car after work, not ready to go home. A mother lingering in a hospital lot, afraid of what waited inside. An old man listening to the radio with the engine off, watching lights reflect in his windshield. They heard things sometimes. A voice. A knock. A scream that didn't sound like pain. Most of them left. Some didn't. And every year, around Christmas, the listening grew stronger. On a cold December night, nearly a year later, a family parked near the edge of the same lot. The father cut the engine and sat quietly for a moment, staring ahead. Snow drifted down, peaceful and slow. The children argued softly in the back seat. The radio played a familiar holiday song. "Dad," one of them asked, "why aren't we going in?" He didn't answer right away. Something about the silence felt heavier than it should have. He frowned, listening closely, trying to identify the feeling crawling up his spine. Then he heard it. A whisper. Not loud. Not urgent. Just close enough to feel personal. "Take your time." The father swallowed. He reached for the door handle. Paused. And somewhere beneath the asphalt, beneath the snow and the waiting spaces, something leaned in. And listened.